There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbour, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference. Hey, welcome once again to Hard Money. John Scholes here, and of course, Darren Long, Delta Harbour Assets. Delta Harbour is where you want to go to get that portfolio expanded, the world of hard assets, gold and silver and the like. So if you're not well steeped in knowledge when it comes to hard assets, here's where you want to go. There's where you want to reach out, deltaharbor.com, 1-888-335-8645, and youtube.com/Delta Harbour. They have their own channel. Subscribe and learn lots more. Later on the show, we're going to tell you exactly how you start to get some of these hard assets into your portfolio, because it's high time you did that. But the show today, Darren, a timely one, and we're calling this one the Season of Change. Are you prepared? How you doing, pal? What's up today?
Well, I am not prepared, John, but financially, I will tell you this, I am prepared. But listen, as those days get a little shorter and we get a little bit of chilly weather, as we're having now in Ontario, I get excited. In 17, 18 years that I've been doing this is the time of year where we have renewed excitement about markets, about what the potential of our assets are that our clients own. And for gold and silver owners, this is a time in which we rejoice. We've been through the summer doldrums. As we're taping the show on Fridays, proof in the pudding, as both silver and gold are up a few percent each, week over week, which is all we can ask for of the metals. It's expected. Everything's there on the table, John, to have a rally right now. And the data, as we talked about, the skewed data, the distorted data last week's show, is just growing leaps and bounds by the day. We had a huge miss in GDP this week, which is very significant given how excited they were about what the post-COVID rally would look like. Lots of analysts talking about that, but people are talking in general. John, gold's up another percent. It's trading right now in the 1820 to 1830 range. As we tape this show, it's silently moving ahead, and it's going to leave lots of people behind. But I know our listeners here on Hard Money are paying attention. They're listening to this show, going over the website. They're thinking about their wealth. It's important to them. It's important to us and their families. And silver following with gold up above 24. In fact, as we were taping the show here, about 24.30, and holding very nicely above that range. So both metals look great. I think we hit rock bottoms during the summer doldrums, John. And as we move into today's show, we're going to discuss the seasonal expected changes in both metals. And so let's start off by saying, as we always do, congratulations to those that stacked a little more this week, to those that opened up new accounts, registered accounts, a lot of RSPs and TFSAs this week, John. And we want to welcome everybody aboard to Delta Harbour Assets.
And again, that number anytime, we give it out throughout the show, 1-888-335-8645. And, last week we were talking about upgrading your wealth strategy by adding some firepower in the form of physical gold and silver. And this week, tides of change appear to be around the corner, pal. So what do you think seasonal change is going to bring for both silver and gold?
Well, I can tell you the data is getting more and more skewed, John. As I just said before, as we discussed last week, the path to glory is certainly going to be a bumpy one. That's for sure. From inflation and CPI, housing numbers, interest rates, unemployment, the cost of living, to all the major economic indicators, there's a growing concern that the data is getting more and more distorted. I even listened this week, if you can believe it or not, to a radio show on the AM band. I won't mention the show, but they had a person on talking about, oddly enough, shrinkflation. And this particular consumer analyst, usually you'd hear them screaming at the top of their lungs about how this is just wrong, how inflation is going to eat away all of this. But this consumer analyst was talking about how it's a good thing, how it's a positive thing that we spend the same amount of money, but we get less. And this is part of this process. As this cycle ensues, as we hit the top of a cycle in the broader mainstream financial markets, the other side of that is the bust. And this is what it looks like it's shaping up to do. Again, there'll be lots of things that happen between now and the time that occurs, but we want preparation. And as the seasons change, it's a good reminder that we are going to be met with challenges about our wealth, and gold and silver should play a role in that strategy. And when we look at the numbers, I mean, this week, John, how can we not focus on GDP? Expectations for the quarter were that we were going to see a gain of 2.5% in the last quarter, but we ended up having a contraction of 0.3%. This comes on the heels of what we've been talking about, which was a big contraction in one of the largest segments of GDP, which is real estate fees, which were down some 18% in the quarter. So we're near the top of the boom bust cycle, not the bottom. Our government wants that cycle to last as long as humanly possible. And of course, rightfully so, they want people to be happy, but they are spin doctors and they are out and about trying to make sense of it all. And we have to recognize as investors, as people that are going to have to protect and ensure their wealth, that the implications of higher inflation and less than expected economic growth the role that they're going to play. We have to open up our eyes and see that. Owning assets like gold and silver that have over very long periods of time been good investments when the threat of inflation takes hold is right now. This is the time to do it. If you haven't already thought about it, at least give it some consideration. Every single investor out there with money in the market should have a part of their portfolio in physical gold and silver.
Well, I mean, we mentioned off the top, and we've loosely titled this episode "A Season of Change." So, what do you mean by that exactly? Drill down on that a little bit for us, Darren.
Well, we seem to be at a crossroads, John. Really, when it comes down to it, this post-COVID era has analysts talking like last year was a mini recession of sorts, but really extremely skewed by the COVID data. So we don't really count that as a recession per se, although it acted like it. It's not a traditional recession in that sense. So we're really just continuing on the same boom bust cycle that we have been on since around 2010. Money printing saves the day. All of the problems get swept under the rug. GDP numbers are a big miss. And if we don't see growth here, we risk seeing 2 quarters contraction in what is traditionally considered to be a recession. Housing is starting to slow. Prices are not, but the number of buyers are. And that only leads to lower prices. So right now, we're still seeing prices stay at where they are or edging slightly higher in some communities. But ultimately, we're going to see that change. When we have a lot of debt to repair, and it is growing arguably faster than any G8 country. In fact, I read a report last week saying we have put ourselves in the worst position of the G20 in terms of our economy moving forward with the amount of debt that we've accumulated. And still, John, the mainstream believes we're going to witness growth. I mean, why chance it? I'm on side with saying, hey, I can be positive. I can get excited. I hope it's going to happen. And I would never suggest leaving your main wealth strategy of owning your stocks, mutual funds, RSPs, registered accounts. All that stuff is great, but own bullion to have an insurance policy on the side. It's got a track record that proves unequivocally, at least in the 18 years I've been in the business, that it performs as good or better than every single major asset class over that period of time. So whether it's taking gold and silver home with you, whether it's storing it with Delta Harbour, whether it's putting it in your TFSAs or RSPs, we can help you with that. We can get that going. Heck, if you're an investor who wants to take advantage of it, you can finance up to 80% of your bullion purchase. Get 3 times as much metal in that account, and we can show you how to do that at Delta Harbour for sure.
First, I've got to take our first break of the show. In the meantime, when we come back, Darren, I want to ask you some questions about this idea of season of change and how you feel gold and silver fit into a properly diversified wealth strategy. We got to cover that, and then we're going to talk a little later on the show about how you actually execute getting some of those hard assets and metals into your portfolio for sure. But in the meantime, 1-888-335-8645 is always the number. Delta Harbour with a U, deltaharbor.com is the website. And again, all these video casts and more education can be found youtube.com/Delta Harbour as well. We'll continue Hard Money right here on Sauga 960. Hey everyone, welcome back. Hard Money. Thanks for tuning in to this radio show and this video cast. By the way, youtube.com/Delta Harbour. That's Harbor with a U, to watch more and go back into the archive as well. Lots of good stuff there to be learned as far as metals and hard assets and bolstering your already pretty good portfolio, but it can always be a little better, right? With some diversification. That's what we talk about on the show. 1-888-335-8645. And deltaharbor.com. Okay, you got a lot of questions at Delta. I know, Darren, I have no doubt, but I have a few questions for you that I think our listeners would like answers to as well. You guys talk about physical gold and silver. Do I own gold and silver if I'm invested in paper mining stocks or maybe an ETF? We've talked about this before, but they're good broad strokes to go over again, right?
They are, and it's a good question, John. It's one we get asked a lot. But again, this is by the people on the inside who are thinking about owning gold and silver. Most people don't realize that if you own a mining stock, or let's say an ETF, anything in paper, you do not own gold or silver. You own the company that you're invested in. And 9 times out of 10, even if you own an ETF, an exchange traded fund, unless you're willing to take very large chunks for delivery that are very expensive, as a small investor putting in 5 or 10,000, you don't own any gold or silver. You own a paper promise. And ultimately, that's why we like for people to understand that if you want exposure to gold and silver, it's easy to own the physical gold and silver. And we often think of these paper assets as gold or silver when we talk like we own gold and silver, but the truth is you just don't. The company that we're investing in, or the mining firm you own, might own gold and silver, but you as a single investor do not own any gold or silver. You are subject to the same pressures in those paper investments as the broad market. So if there is a recession or a shock to the system, those paper assets, despite the fact that gold itself, physical gold and silver, might go up in price, the physical is going to act differently than the paper. Paper could drop in value dramatically. Look at 2008. In the ensuing 36 months, the price of gold and silver went astronomically high. Silver almost hit its all-time high. Gold did hit its all-time high and then doubled in price. And ultimately, did we see the same thing happen in the paper markets? No, not at all. By 2015, most of them had gotten back to where they were at 2008. Analysts continued to be spin doctors, planners, advisors, continue to be spin doctors to tell people, great, you're back to where you are. Now we're going to make money. But you gave up those 7-8 years when you could have held an asset like physical gold and silver. And we live in a world of paper assets. There's obscene government spending and a watered down currency, especially here in Canada right now. I get this really chilled feeling when I think about the Canadian dollar. And physical gold and silver are none of these things. They stand alone as real money. And it's in a world where nothing else is real money. And that's been the case for many years, but the financial conditions of Canada, the US, and many other advanced economies put us all on a path, which is, John, very eerily similar to the bloody Roman Empire. I mean, this is the fall of a currency. This is how it happens. No currency lasts forever. No currency has lasted forever. It's just a fact of life that sooner or later, something else will replace it. But one thing has stood the test of time. That's precious metals, gold and silver. And when things start to break down, the world won't end, but it may feel like it. So this upheaval could be so rocky that you'll need more than just exposure to the gold price. You'll need the actual physical metal. Gold ETFs and other vehicles, they can offer some protection to your portfolio, but they may not offer protection for your lifestyle. Only physical bullion can withstand the worst the economy and market can throw at it.
Plus, when you're buying a paper asset for gold and silver, I mean, you're not on any sort of board of directors. You have no control over anything. You're flapping in the wind, really. It's not like having physical metal in your basement or in a storage facility with you guys. You have no control over anything.
You don't, John. I mean, people that are going to take advantage of that are found left and right all over the world all the time.
Right.
Is the gold there? Is it not? Have we audited Fort Knox? We haven't. How do we know? We don't know, because 9 times out of 10, they're not auditing the product themselves because they know it's not there. But ultimately, there are some good investment vehicles that you can participate in. But if you want exposure to physical gold, then you should own the actual physical gold itself. I mean, that's the way to do it. It's transportable. It's easily stored. It's liquid. You can buy and sell like a stock or an ETF. It's very easy to do. And ultimately, that's what we're suggesting the clients that come to Delta actually end up doing.
And it's funny too. I know when clients come and give you a call or show up at the shop and talk to you guys, once they've warmed up to this idea of the physical metal versus the ETF or the paper, the next question inevitably is, okay, Darren, so how much and gold and silver is enough? Where do I start?
Well, how much is enough? It's a very, very personal question, in my opinion, John. But we ask our clients to consider the following. A, what are your goals? All right. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Are you buying to buy the cottage? Are you trying to pay for education? Is it just for retirement? I mean, what are the goals? You have to lay those out before you understand your wealth strategy as best as you can. Secondly, we say, how much do you need to make an actual difference? So if you're adding gold and silver, is it enough to suggest that I'm going to actually make any difference inside of my portfolio, whether it's for profit, insurance, for both, if I only have $2,000 worth of gold? Well, relative to the individual, it might make a huge difference. But on the average investor, if they just pick up, a little tiny bit, it may not be enough. They may need more to make a substantial dent in the return they're looking to make, into the lifestyle they want to have, into the goals they want to achieve. And to that, I would say the third point that we come across, or that we help and share with clients, is how much would I need to support my lifestyle? If tomorrow the broad markets ended and all I had left was gold and silver, how much would I need to have a decent lifestyle? Depending on what would occur, what would happen, what do I need to have? And then we discuss the merits of each metal, John. So we let people know the goods, the pros, the cons of both gold and silver, the differences in volatility, what to expect, what the history has shown, what the roadmap looks like. All of those things are part of the process. And then they can make the final decision as to what they want and go with it from there.
In the meantime, you want to reach out to Darren or Rob or Roy, the rest of the crew at the firm. You can do so deltaharbour.com and 1-888-335-8645. I know one of your favorite words on the show is inflation. We know the data is skewed. We've done multiple shows on this. People are learning their lesson about that. So the question is, how do I know if I'm well prepared for persistent inflation when it comes to owning metals?
Well, first thing to do is to realize what inflation does. You're losing money every single year that you do not respond to an inflationary situation. And you're getting poorer and poorer. This is, again, something you don't realize. Our purchasing power is not keeping up if inflation is high. Right now, inflation is high. As we said on last week's show, reported inflation may only be 3 to 4% in Canada, but street inflation, what we're actually feeling with the gas going up to $1.40 a liter, with food going higher in price, with clothing going higher in price, back to school shopping is going to prove undoubtedly that inflation is creeping in. All of the tech we're buying going higher in price, housing, ripping our pockets apart to the extent that 9 out of 10 people can no longer afford one. When this happens, you have to take a look and say, what can I do differently? What am I able to add to my strategy overall that will help me? Many still believe the Fed, when they say inflation will be transitory, both here in Canada and the US, but even in some in the mainstream community are starting to doubt that based on the fact that the CPI remains stubbornly high. There aren't many episodes in history where inflation spiked, John, like it's doing now, and then all of a sudden just falls down and stops happening. So here's the point. The higher and longer you think inflation goes, the more gold and silver you need. If your household becomes compromised in any way, having a healthy stash of bullion can help you get through that. And this is the exact point we always make when it comes to inflation. Why at that point, John, we dwell on it constantly. You've got to have the assets which combat inflation: physical gold, physical silver.
You're dancing on the edge of purchasing power. And I know you want to have that discussion, but we got to take a quick break before we do that. Reaching out, as I keep saying every show, 1-888-335-8645, the number, deltaharbour.com, because this investment is all about you. So it's Harbor with a U, deltaharbour.com. And to watch these video casts and lots more, head over to YouTube, youtube.com/Delta Harbor. We'll continue Hard Money. This is Sauga 960. All right, welcome back. Hard Money, Darren Long here, John Scholes as well. You want to reach out anytime during this show. This whole this talk every week about hard assets in the form of gold and silver and some other metals. If it's piqued your interest, reach out. Have a lengthier conversation with Darren or a member of the team. 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbour.com. Harbor with you. All right. The question, again, these are questions you get all the time online and email and phone calls. What makes gold and silver for that case, such a good asset during inflation, because we spent a lot of the last segment talking about inflation, the number they think they know, and the real number on the street, right?
That's right. I mean, average return for Canadian portfolios is below 5%, John.
Ooh.
It's just a sad truth. If inflation is sitting at 5%, you're getting killed.
Yeah, nothing.
Right? Because next year it's going to cost you 5% more to buy the same things you bought this year. And if you only made 5%, you're back to square one. So we've got to do better than that, John. We have to do better. And as Canadians, we owe it to ourselves to do better. And I think one of the ways that we can improve our overall wealth strategy is by increasing our purchasing power. And there is a way to do that. We talked last week about it, but that's plain and simple for me, John, why you can make such a positive case for the ownership of gold and silver. It protects purchasing power. Now, this is something that's very silent to people. Inflation is a silent killer of wealth. We don't talk about it enough. But gold and silver hold their value over very long periods of time. In fact, thousands of years. And they do so during real threats of inflation, like we're seeing right now. And we've seen this back in milder threats of inflation in 2004, 2006, 2008, and again during the post-financial crisis when all the money started getting printed. By 2011, we thought inflation for sure, so much money had been printed. And again, we saw gold and silver rally with that threat well in place. But now it may just have taken another decade or so, but we haven't turned off the printing presses, John. We've slowed them in parts of the world, but in the G20, in order to stay up with the, keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, we've had to continue turning on the printing presses and printing and printing and printing. And then boom, COVID hits. We drop, we go from in Canada, our 2008 year with Harper being our largest debt year. We spent, federal debt, 54 billion in spending. We went from 54 billion to 400 billion. And man, how are we going to pay it back? Get ready. Taxes are going higher. This is what's going to happen. But gold and silver hold their value, John, and ultimately it takes very little to move gold and silver higher. It can be a very long time in between those peaks, but as an owner of gold myself over the last 18 years, we talk to people about this strategy all the time, and there are ways we can increase and decrease the amount of risk a person takes. But it's on them. They have to make the decisions. They have to know their goals. They have to know what is comfortable for their lifestyle and what they want to ultimately achieve. But John, when we go into the fourth quarter, both gold and silver are very poised to move ahead here. And I suspect that this is going to happen. And this is why we're talking about this being the season of change, because we're on the precipice of seeing something happen very significant in gold and silver, as well as the rest of the financial world. Housing's on the precipice of a tipping point. It could go definitely much lower from here, but ultimately, I think we've seen what's going to happen play itself out, and money printing will be there, but we're going to see gold and silver go higher, much, much higher than where it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned season of change, which is loosely the theme of the show. So, I mean, changes of government, possibly. Good time for an election, by the way. Excellent timing. That could be happening. The top of another economic cycle is looming closer, and the opportunity to change your wealth strategy, it's here. Add some solid hard assets like gold and silver. You keep touting that every week.
Oh, it really is, John. I mean, ultimately, look at where we are. I mean, we could see a change of government now. I mean, listen, conservatives look like they're pulling ahead of the liberals. The liberals are certainly going to push back, and a lot's happening. But one thing's for sure, everybody's tripping over one another's feet. The second some politician says something about what they're going to have for their platform. What I see ahead, no matter who gets elected, is more spending, more debt. You can't get out of this right now. We can't come full reverse because we can't afford interest rates going higher. Imagine what that does to the slew of people that just spent more money than they ever thought that they would on houses, and are spending more money in an inflationary period than they thought they ever would on disposable items and consumer goods and the things that they need to live every day. This is going to be a very stressful period in time. And, be it, John, for insurance, for profit, for family protection, all of the above. It just makes sense. It's very easy to do if you're working with a firm like ours, Delta Harbour Assets.
1-888-335-8645 is that number, deltaharbor.com. Harbor with you. Balance of gold and silver. You think that's a smart approach, Darren? You do, right?
I do think it's a smart approach, John. It's a great point, a valid one. First of all, I have a very simple 10% rule. Start with 10% and go from there. Either argue that you need less than 10% of your portfolio weighted in gold and silver physical, or you need more. But a starting point nonetheless can be had from there, and using a simple set of rules for yourself, depending on who you are, what your income is like, what you have as disposable income, whether or not you're an average everyday investor, whether you're somebody who is an accredited investor who might have more wealth to spend. You can make your own changes, but my own personal rule is 10%. And I extend that further. That 10% rule applies to my real estate purchases. If I'm buying real estate or if I'm investing in real estate, speculating in land, 10% of the total value I put into gold and silver, while the rest I put into land and other resources. So basically, for every 100K worth of real estate or land I own, I put 10,000 into gold and silver. Now, our listeners know that physical gold and silver share many of the same characteristics. We've talked about it week over week, why gold and silver prices, physical gold and silver prices move in the same direction. They're money, they're tangible, they're portable, they're liquid, and they can be sold almost anywhere in the world. But they don't necessarily react to every event the same. For example, gold usually rises during recessions a lot quicker than silver does. Silver can initially pull back a little bit harder. Silver tends to be a little bit more volatile because it tends to be the more undervalued of the two metals and tends to have larger climactic moments where, from a percentage of return perspective, it makes more than gold. And it has for 18 years. It's done this since I've been in the market. Gold usually rises alongside a goal of the stock market. So you'll see initially gold will be the first thing to move higher, pardon me. And when it does, you'll see silver will track behind and then play catch up. And ultimately, central banks, they buy gold. They don't buy silver. So there are some significant differences in approaches to each metal, but each metal has distinct advantages and disadvantages. So there are reasons for holding both. And ultimately, we talk about all of those when we bring a client in, sit them down, have a phone discussion. And yes, we stand to earn more profit on silver than gold, but the best advice is to have exposure to both metals, John, not just one, in order to withstand all types of events. And the easiest and cheapest way to do that with us is through what we call our bulk bullion program. Not only do we compare competitively, in 90% of the cases, we're going to beat the bullion price of other dealers, but we also have another program that lets people put very small amounts of dollar value into the market and get bulk bullion, which means they have exposure to physical gold and silver, not paper. And they can obviously convert that anytime they want into bars or coins, take it home, keep it stored. They can also use the collateralized financing, which we talked about earlier, which we give them up to 80% financing on a purchase, which could be amazing given what the climate is right now for gold and silver.
Well, you set the table nicely, as we usually spend segments 4 and 5 getting into how you actually get these assets into your portfolios. People always want to know at the end of the day how they start. So we'll do that, but got to take a wee break first. The number 1-888-335-8645. Write it down, use it, call it, have a discussion with Darren and his team, and you can go online to deltaharbor.com, Harbor with a U. And these video casts, as I mentioned, always available, and so much more for you to learn, so much more, to youtube.com/Delta Harbor. We'll continue. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960. Welcome back. Hard Money, Sauga 960. And of course, the video cast can be had and viewed anytime. The whole series, as a matter of fact, the stuff you guys have been doing since you started this series, youtube.com/Delta Harbor, Harbor with the U, and the good old fashioned phone number, 1-888-335-8645, and deltaharbor.com. So we talked about different ways to get some hard assets, gold and silver, into your portfolio. Storage as well. Delta Harbor's vaulting program. Really cool. I mean, listeners are probably wondering where it goes and if it's stored, how is it stored? Is it safe? How do I get started? Because that is another brilliant option offered by you guys. Darren, tell me about it.
The storage option is something I think a lot of people overlook, John, and simply put, they're scared. They've never owned gold or silver before. They think the safest way to do it is to put it at home. And, a lot of people, they share that information. Unfortunately, I see it every day on the groups I belong to when we're scouring through all the various social media groups and sharing our information with them, sharing articles and things of that nature. Not a day that goes by that somebody doesn't boast about the gold or silver they have. Not smart to do. It's not safe. You shouldn't do it. Not unless you're a firm, not unless you're somebody that has a vault or that can insure their product. And this vaulting program, John, listen, we're not the only ones in Canada who use it. This isn't a vault that we bought and made specifically for it, but it was designed specifically for bullion by the company that owns it and that we work with very closely and have since they opened up the vault. In fact, I was in that vault when it was being made. I went into the raw building, cool. Saw how it was being designed, looked in and saw where they were going to be putting all the bullion, the vault within the vault for gold, all of the key concepts that are involved in safety and insurance of the product. It's fully taken care of, John. And when we talk about storage for gold and silver, it's liquid. It's a phone call. You just dial up Delta, say, hey, I want to sell, I want to buy. Boom. You either subtract or you add. And if you want to do multiple metals, you can put gold and silver, platinum, palladium in there. You can add metal you currently own at home to keep it safe in there. And it's a competitive rate in terms of storage for insuring it one-to-one and having the peace of mind that at night when you put your head down, nobody is ever going to break in or want to take your gold because it's not at home in an unsafe spot. It is a Class 3 vaulting facility. The one in particular that we use for our Canadian clients and a lot of American clients, if you're listening to this right now, it's the fastest growing trend we have at Delta is that American clients are coming to us to park their bullion offshore. So instead of the typical spots of Delaware and a few others, they are going to Delta and places like us to put their products here in Canada. So they have some safe storage. It's out of their country and they're allowed to do that. We do it all the time, but it's a Class 3 vaulting facility. There are numerous locations around the world. It offers you segregation and allocation, which means it can be in your name. You get your inventory reports, so you'll see what your product is. Your inventory reports will include, if you desire, the serial numbers of the bars. And heck, when it comes to sell, you can instruct us to specifically sell bars that have a list of serial numbers that you've chosen. So it can be very specific or it can be just sell off this, Darren, go ahead. But you get, in addition to that, the opportunity to visit your product. It can be changes. It could be video audited. And it's a good idea to keep some bullion close as well, John. I mean, I'm not totally against having some bullion at home, provided you have a safe spot to store it, maybe a safe at home in case you need it in emergency. But as your stack grows, it's only prudent to keep most of it out of the house. Remember, as gold and silver prices increase, you become a greater target at home. And we're hearing about it more frequently than ever. There was one very significant report not too long ago where about $300,000 worth of gold was stolen from Vancouver out of a house. And again, the situation, the person boasted about it on social media.
Oh my God.
Boom, they lost the product. And here's the downside. It's not insured at home unless you have a very extensive insurance program that costs a lot of money. So we see those pictures all the time on Twitter, people posting their stacks. And while most are good at not showing clues of where they live, all it takes is someone who follows you to figure it out. Social media is an increasingly common way to communicate, but it's not a good thing for displaying your wealth. You should be keeping that as private as possible between you and your wealth, or you and a company like Delta Harbour. So I encourage you to diversify where you store your bullion, especially as your stash grows. I mean, the stack gets higher and higher. You add more gold, more silver. You shouldn't be keeping it all in one place. Put it in a storage facility. And that's the reason you don't want your physical fortune wiped out in one tragic mishap. And also, here's a little money-saving trick for our listeners who are tuned in right now. It's very simple, and you can use this and apply it to any product you're buying. Buy bars. They have lower premiums. It's also true that gold bars are cheaper than gold coins. If anybody's wondering, same with silver. And ultimately, those kinds of little tips are the insiders. That's what they get on a regular daily basis here at Delta Harbour.
Well, it's a manufacturing detail. It takes, less manufacturing and fewer manpower to make bars than it does to coins. I think it's simple manufacturing details. So get on top of the bars. It's a good tip. Again, when we switch over to another way to get these assets into your portfolio, Darren, there's the options of RSPs, TFSAs. God, we love TFSAs, liras, RIFs, all these things. Now, again, you can use these vehicles, but it is still physical metal, correct?
100%. It is. With Delta Harbour, everything we do with respect to gold and silver, platinum, palladium is 100% physical. It's always in bar coin form. There is no exception to that rule. There's no delayed ownership. There's no pooled product that doesn't belong to you, the client. There's none of that. It's all product that is accounted for, that's audited on a regular basis, that's held with the finest facilities in Canada, and that's bought through the finest mints and fabricators of the world, from the Royal Canadian Mints to the US Mint to the British Mint to PAMP and Argor and other of the finest Swiss purveyors of product, gold and silver product. And ultimately, yes, John, this is an exciting moment in time because you can put this into your TFSA and RSP. If you're out there and you already have an existing RSP or TFSA, a spousal account, and you want to do something different or better, gold and silver, we can switch it from the current institution over to Delta Harbour, and we can add gold and silver into that for you, help you to do it. It's very easy. It remains under the umbrella with the same exact benefits, except for it's physical. So not only do you get the added advantage of the movements in the price of silver and gold and the profitability, but if all hell broke loose tomorrow, you get the ability to take delivery of your physical precious metals. Right? Try doing that with a paper stock. Don't worry, honey, we're going to be just fine in this situation. I'm going to go get my Apple paper stock. This is the world that we live in now, John. These fears are here. And this is just something that's common sense and that is becoming more and more common sense and mainstream as the time grows. So putting it in an RSP is very easy. It is tangible. You can bring funding in from other sources or brand new funding. You can keep it under your TFSA to keep it capital gains free. It's eligible for all the great benefits you currently get with the TFSA and the RSP and the LIRA and converting to the LIF and RIF. You can do all those things and still have those tax deferral incentives and the capital gains free.
All right. Well, we spent the last few minutes talking about increasing your wealth and building up your stockpile of these metals, get them stored, keep them safe. But the flip side of that is, okay, Darren, it's time to unload it. Want to sell it? How do we do it? But we got to take a short break before we get. How's that for a tease? So stick around for that information. The phone number in the meantime, 1-888-335-8645. Reaching out online as well. DeltaHarbor.com. That is Harbor with a U. Hard Money continues. This is Sauga 960. All right, welcome back to Hard Money. John Scholes and, of course, Darren Long from Delta Harbour. Delta Harbour Assets can be reached anytime. Darren's got an amazing crew ready to have a nice, relaxed, lengthy conversation. If you're not familiar with these uncharted waters of physical metals, gold and silver and other metals. Physical metals, you can pick them up, you can hold them, you can look at them, you can pet them, stroke them, and store them. It's a good thing. 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. And a reminder, YouTube channel as well with all these video casts and more information and education, youtube.com/Delta Harbour. Okay, we spent every show, the tail end of every show, Darren, telling people how to get these assets, how to get these hard metals into their storage facility. They want to keep a little bit at home. They want to put it into the registered accounts, RSPs, LIRAs, RIFs, TSFAs. We've covered that. Now it comes a time where maybe I want to unload some of my holdings, some of my physical holdings of gold and silver. Darren, how do I go about doing that? Selling time, right?
Well, if you've taken it home with you, John, it's just a matter of bringing it back and getting a check.
Okay.
Can it be any simpler than that? Generally speaking, unless you're an extremely large investor with holdings exceeding hundreds of thousands of dollars, you take the spot price of gold and silver. Say today silver is US priced 18.24. You take 18.24, subtract 2%, and that's going to be roughly the price you get for your silver. Cut you a check. Have a nice day. Go and put it into the bank. And thank you for doing business with Delta. If you're in a storage account, you don't even have to bring it to us. It's already stored in the vault. You just have to make a phone call. And again, we send the funds home. You want a wire back, you want a check, all the normal facets for payment are there, and we're ultimately extremely liquid when we have it stored. So that takes a few seconds. We get you a price and boom, you're sold. No problem. It's done. If you have product inside your TFSA, RSP, or registered account of some sort, your LIRA or other types, you can sell it inside that account using Delta. Again, a phone call, we sell it, put you on hold. And again, remember, inside the registered accounts, you're allowed to have cash sitting there doing nothing. You don't have to have it spent in some form of a stock that you don't need or want or feel pressured to do it. There'll come times in gold and silver when we talk about strategies where we will want to liquidate some or a portion of or all of your bullion holdings in favor of trying to buy it back at a lower price. These are big peak moments. We do not day trade gold and silver. But if the price of silver is about to hit 30 and we think it's going to pull back to 20, well, there may be some thought given to the reasons why that's an opportunity of a lifetime for you as an investor to liquidate some or all of your holdings and buy back at a lower price. I mean, it may feel odd to discuss this topic when gold and silver prices are going nowhere. I mean, they're going to be going much, much higher at this point in time. But you need to formulate that plan right now. Having an exit strategy, John, it's what we talk about when you come and sit down here. We want you to think about it so that you're not scrambling to figure it out when an economic or market emergency strikes. So if you don't know, Delta always shares with its insiders, its clients, when we begin to exit or when we think that the market is going to take a turn for the worse. And I mean significant. I'm not talking about day trading or things of that nature. And we'll have numerous indicators that we will use, some of which will be proprietary, but our exit plan is always rooted in the research we do on a day-to-day basis. And our insiders and clients always know. We talk to them about the markets, and as current listeners to our show, they also know when we're sharing on the buying side, John. We just talked about summer doldrums. That's a heavy buying time for Delta, and it has been for me personally for 18 years. I've seen this happen so many times. I've taken advantage of it, and this was a great summer for it. We got some very nice buying opportunities, and we're still much closer to the bottom than we are to the top. So that will continue into the fall. We'd like people to take advantage of that. And so whatever your plan might be, I encourage you to formulate it now when you're getting into the market, when you're thinking about owning gold and silver, and even if it has to be modified to some extent due to circumstances at the time, you'll be operating from a position of strength instead of wallowing about and doubting what to do.
That phone number to reach out, we give it all the time, 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com online. That's the website, Harbor with the U. Let's just go over, as we get to our last few minutes of the show here, Darren, this week, options for people to hold physical gold and silver with Delta.
Well, let's go through it in reverse, John. Instead of going through from direct to the opposite way, we'll go the exact opposite. The first option, collateralized financing. You can finance up to 80% of your gold or silver purchase if you so desire. The choice is completely yours, not ours. And if you're part of that program, A, you get physical product. B, it's hallmark product, so you're getting all of the product that can be liquidated, bought, and sold around the world. C, in that account, you can choose to have bars, coins, or just bulk bullion, which means you just get bullion, which doesn't have to be declared as fabricated bars or coins. You are just getting bullion and exposure to gold and silver instead of having to worry about taking it home or storage or anything like that. And you can also, as we just said, put it into a registered account. This is a great time of year to be thinking about RSPs before we get into the fall rigors when people are back to school and so on and so forth. This is a perfect time right now to top up the TFSA, top up the RSP, take advantage of where we've been in prices of gold and silver, and hopefully stay away from being those people who call when the price of gold ventures 20 or 30% higher, thinking about it and saying, Darren, I could have bought this when it was 1,800 and change. No. Don't be that person. If you're going to buy gold and silver, do it now. There's no reason for not considering it. In addition to that, you can buy it and store it with us, just a straight purchase. Say you want 10 100-ounce silver bars, 10 1-ounce gold bars. We can put that into storage for you. It's local, right here in Toronto. It's insured 1-to-1, Lloyd's of London, and you have everything you'll need to be successful in that account. Again, buying and selling by phone, or ultimately you can make that same purchase and take it home. Setting up an account by going to our website or sitting in office and doing it takes all of 5-10 minutes, and you can fund the account very easily. And then once that account is funded, you can make your purchase. You'll have a portal online. You'll see your purchases, your invoices. And of course, you get the Delta Harbour treatment every step of the way, white glove treatment. And that is hands-on, customer focused. We are doing anything that you need us to do to help you to be successful, even if it means holding your hand every single step of the way.
Only got about a minute left in the show. Just quickly, why people are considering and should consider and definitely go the physical route versus paper assets, right?
We talked about it earlier in the show, but let's shoot off a couple of quick ones. Durability and dual purpose. Buy and sell them, but also take them home. Keep them as insurance. Pass them on to the next generation. Can't do that with paper, John. Insurance for your wealth. Have it, because if all heck breaks loose, gold and silver eat up uncertainty. They tend not to move in the same direction as paper. No third-party liabilities. You can't print gold and silver. They're easily transportable in this day and age, and they are liquid. It is easy to sell them anywhere in the entire world, and you can do so by phone call. They're contrarian assets. And finally, John, they are inflation hedges. This is an inflationary period. It's not going anywhere. Put some gold and silver into your portfolio. Make some money.
We're done. Reach out, make that call, have a conversation. 1-888-335-8645. Delta Harbour, Harbor with you, deltaharbor.com. And again, anytime you want to see the videocast version of this, you can go to youtube.com/Delta Harbour. We'll catch you next time. Hard Money here on Sauga 960.